morning, this is Arif again. Sorry about the technical problem earlier. I'm just going to quickly check our sound. I'm conscious of our time today. To start again, we have Mr. Salil Tripathi with us today, talking about his recent book about Bangladesh and the murder of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman is the founding father of Bangladesh country, and he's a well-respected and loved figure. Mr. Tripathi has written, researched extensively about this book, and he wrote this book lovingly for Bangladesh and for us to understand the history and surrounding situation when Bangabandhu was murdered back in 1975. In few days' time, August 14th, August 15th, we're going to commemorate the 41st anniversary of his death. And in this time, I think it's important that we talk about the issue from a clear perspective. So we have Salil here with us today. Hi, Salil. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you very well. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry about that technical mishap earlier, and I think we can start talk. I am conscious about the time So, Salil, what made you go and write this book?
So I think there were three reasons for it. One is that when the war started in 1971 in March, I was a 9-year-old, I was a 9-year-old schoolboy in India, and I have vivid memories, of the funds being raised in India for the refugees who were coming, for initially the moral support and later technical and equipment support that India gave the Mukti Bahini, and towards the end when the war actually came to India, and India also joined the war in the last 2 weeks of the 9-month struggle. So there was that, there were memories of the whole patriotic fervor that had started in India. The second part was that in 1986 I went to Bangladesh for the first time as a reporter, and that was the time when General Arshad had become elected in that controversial election, and standing against him was Farooq Rahman, who is the colonel named in the book, the colonel who would not repent. And I was a bit surprised that why would somebody who has been involved with the assassination of the father of the nation, founding father and so on, A, that he is able to operate freely, and B, that he is a presidential candidate. So that was another bit of curiosity. I mean, our family was always interested in Bengali culture, that's third. And the final was that in the last few years, in the last 15 years or so, I've done a lot of work in human rights. And one thing you learn about in human rights, the whole notion of immunity, impunity, justice, and so on. And Bangladesh is working towards, through the war crimes tribunals, get some justice. It's been controversial, no question about it, the way they've gone about it in Bangladesh. But that also made me feel that it's something where I can bring my old interest, my passion, my love for Bangla culture, and what I've learned in human rights to all in one book. And that's what the book is.
Unfortunately, for me, it was a bit of a short notice because I didn't realize this book has already been published in the UK a month ago.
Right.
I've been trying to...
Here, yes.
I've been trying to get hold of the book for some time, and as soon as I knew, I placed the order, but the book will be with me on Monday, so it's a bit short notice for me. I definitely urge everyone. I'm showing the two versions of the same book. One, it was published in late 2014 in India, and the other one in UK and internationally. So if anybody outside of India wants to get hold of this book, I think you can order it on Amazon or any other bookstore. It's a very well written book by Mr. Tripathi about Bangladesh. So I don't want to give anybody any spoilers or anything. But
if it's non-fiction, there are no spoilers.
There is no spoilers. Okay, so what is your findings about what actually kind of was happening surrounding the time Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib was murdered, and how it was running up to the moment when it was murdered? Can you give us a bit of a kind of history?
Yeah, sure. I did speak to a lot of people who were either late teens, early 20s, and even more older people who lived through that time and who have experienced it. So here's what I've learned. I mean, one is that he was exceptionally popular in 1971, particularly in 72 January when he came back from West Pakistan and later became Pakistan via Britain and New Delhi and so on. When he came to Bangladesh and the initial elections that they had a few months later, he was elected with an overwhelming majority. But in the days that followed and the months that followed, a couple of things happened. One is that there was lawlessness. There were people who had created these bahinis, which had not surrendered their weapons. So there was some amount of lawlessness in the country. Second is that there was a drought, and that drought took famine-like proportions. So a lot of people who were poor had no access to food, and they started coming to the big cities of Dhaka and Chittagong and Rajshahi and all that, demanding and government help. That was the other thing. The infrastructure was devastated. So many bridges were destroyed. There was power generation units and equipment that was destroyed, and to build all of that was difficult. Now Bangladesh, as everybody knows, produces a lot of jute, and Bangladesh had chosen non-alignment, so it decided to have a trade relationship with Cuba, and it was selling jute to Cuba. Now the US, of course, has a very strong view on trade with Cuba, and so US had decided to blacklist Bangladesh, and it did not get some of the development assistance it would have got otherwise. So all of these were combining to make it very hard for Bangladesh to survive economically and politically. And there were some people even speculating that will it reunite with Pakistan. I mean, this was a very small speculation, but there was that speculation too. And unpopularity was growing. Another thing was happening in the army, that you see there were some soldiers who had fought, I mean some officers who had fought for Mukti Bahini, and some who had remained in West Pakistan. Some were jailed at that time, and they started coming back. So the hierarchies within the army were getting complicated, that people would come back, expect to be made commanders, but then their juniors had actually fought the war and they became their commanders. So that disrupted the harmony. And it was in that atmosphere that some of these junior officers who were feeling personally slighted, they felt that the civilians were claiming all the credits when military had done all the battle. I mean, one of the pejorative things they said was that the Awami leaders were only sitting in Calcutta and issuing press releases, whereas we were the ones fighting the war. So there was that civilian-army relationship was also going bad. So all of that combined to create some unpopularity, which became more and more, especially after Sheikh Mujib created Bakshal, when he created this single party called Bangladesh Krishak Shramik Awami League. He banned other parties, he banned most newspapers, made government officials join it. So people were very upset about it. And in that atmosphere, the assassination was plotted.
Wow. So there are a few things. It's not just because, as you know, inside Bangladesh, there is a narrative, and the narrative comes from two different sources, which kind of represents the two separate political streams right now inside Bangladesh. One is kind of the Islamist kind, more or less known as the Jamatis, and then you have the mid-tier Awami League narrative, and Jamatis always try to vilify Sheikh Mujib, whereas Awami League tries to glorify Awami League. But very few actually tries to look at the situation from a very neutral perspective. And I think the points that you made, a number of them, needs more attention from a Bangladeshi historian's perspective. And, we need to look at, for example, for me, it was a stark revelation that America had blacklisted us. And this was no surprise because
I think they had a trade embargo on Cuba, and anybody who was working with Cuba would therefore go in the blacklist. And we should remember that, Nixon and Kissinger were very unhappy with the creation of Bangladesh.
Yes, we know the 7th Fleet they sent.
The war. So they were really unhappy. So, Kissinger was not going to lose sleep over making life difficult for Bangladesh.
Wow. So at this point, because obviously the whole world is friends with America except a few, but Bangladesh, I think this should be a good reminder for Bangladeshi people that, it's not only that America sent the 7th Fleet, because that's the only visible thing we remember about America, but this is also another kind of a nail in Bangabandhu's coffin, that the starvation that caused the problems inside Bangladesh. And needless to say, it was a devastated country just after a bloody war when, the local guerrillas have destroyed most of the crucial infrastructure for food transportation. In that midst, a country which is kind of popular and largely, a superpower country, putting an embargo on a newly born country was not the best thing to do.
Yeah. So what I would say is that it did not cause the starvation. I mean, obviously, there had been inadequate rainfall and so on, and there were problems with food distribution domestically. But at that time, it could have come to the assistance of Bangladesh, but that it did not do. I mean, it chose not to do it because, of course, you had the Vietnam War still going on. Remember, the Vietnam War was settled only in 73, 74, around then. And so that was one thing. And the opening of China was what Nixon was really keen on. I mean, he wanted to open China to marginalize the Soviet Union, as the Russia and its partner countries were called at that time.
I read your foreword on the book. I think you published it some time back on a website, and also I listened to the YouTube videos that you have about kind of giving an interview similar to that. And on one of them, you talked about Colonel Farouk, and the title of your book kind of reflects his state of mind, that in his mind, he thought he was righteous.
Oh, yeah.
Killing Sheikh Mujib.
He definitely thought he was a patriot.
Why? Can you elaborate on that point a little bit? I mean, why do you think he thought that?
I met him only once, and it was a very long interview. We met for 2 or 3 hours in 1986. And that, I have the interview notes, and this was all based on that. But one of the things you find in that interview that he said was exactly that he was convinced that the nation needed a change. He claimed that Mujibur Rahman would have made Bangladesh a colony of India. He claimed, and I'm marking my words very carefully, these were his claims. I'm not saying that was Mujib's intention. He claimed that India would dominate Bangladesh's political discourse, and he said that Bangladesh needed real independence, which was not possible. And because Mujibur Rahman had created this Bakshal party and closed other parties, he could say that Mujibur Rahman was not a Democrat because he was crushing dissent and so on. So that was his logic. In those days, there was one particular amendment in the parliament that was passed within 18 minutes. I still have it in my notes. It took 18 minutes for us to overturn our aspirations or something of that sort. So he always saw himself as a champion of Bangladeshi democracy, which is awkward because he was not actually a Mukti Bahini commanding officer. He was not there at that time.
He was not there. So his background was military?
Yeah, he was proper colonel. He was obviously trained and so on, but he was not involved with the war in 71. And after the war, when he came back, he was seen as a potential troublemaker. And his brother-in-law was actually the one with whom he created this, launched this conspiracy. In fact, there is a YouTube video, again, you can find, of an old interview with the Pakistani journalist, the late Anthony Mascarenhas, which was, I think, on a British channel. You can still see that video where they are quite clear about what their intentions were. There you're seeing the man himself speaking, so you don't have me as a go-between. You have it in his own words why he did what he did.
So obviously he thought Mujib was going to make Bangladesh India's as you said, puppet. But what I hear from different sources is that India actually did not have any sort of interest, and I think there is another documentary someone is making, and similar events. I can't remember exactly the source, but it shows that India was trying to not come up as interfering with other neighboring countries, and so India actually didn't have any that sort of interest, right?
Well, I can't say that, for sure, because I don't know. That would be what India would tell you. If you were to ask India, the Indian viewpoint would be that, we were next to Bangladesh. A lot of refugees came to us. We looked after them. There were all these Mukti Bahini, and we gave them training and let them go. And we attacked only when we were attacked. there is a very sound argument to be made that in terms of military interventions abroad, this was one of the cleanest, because India went in after it was attacked. It went in for the limited task of restoring government, and it left quickly. I mean, the war ended on 17th of December, and from most accounts, by the end of March the following year, 90% or 95% of Indian troops had left, and
Okay, so
80 to 95% of the refugees had gone back. So that's the clean narrative of India. But if you're conspiracy minded, which many people in Pakistan are, they would think that this was all created and fomented and designed in order to break Pakistan's unity. I mean, they keep talking about the Agartala conspiracy of the 1960s and so on, in which Mujibur Rahman was implicated, to say that India was always interested in breaking up Pakistan and create Bangladesh. But that's the Pakistani view. The Indian view says it is not so. And the Bangladeshi view is that, hang on, sorry, we were being treated very badly by Pakistan. We wanted independence. Thank you, India, you helped us, but this was our fight. So there are three different narratives here.
well, the Pakistani narrative, I don't think we should take anything serious about Pakistan. First of all, as I said, the country was formed based on religion, which is
Yeah.
an impossible country to begin with. I mean, what sort of country has two separate sections with a huge country in between them? I mean,
Well, somebody will say US and Alaska, so.
it's a recipe for
Canada.
disaster to begin with. But then you have Pakistanis continuously for over 30 years, sucked Bangladesh dry out of its wealth and resource. And then when Bangladesh is revolted against all this oppression and injustice and discrimination, Pakistanis decided to eliminate, to do a cleansing of Bangladesh by deploying army and starting an Operation Searchlight, and killed a lot of people and used rape as a weapon. So I
Yeah,
don't think we
I'm
can.
not defending the Pakistani view. I was only presenting it to show how three countries believe their own versions of history. That's all. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm just saying this because my friends and who would see this video at a later time, there is so little work has been done describing the history of Bangladesh, or at least the time of the creation of Bangladesh, and it only served by the Jamati narrative, because Jamatis have good connection with international other Islamist elements, and they have huge firepower in terms of public relations. The story about Bangladesh either gets suppressed or it gets changed. A different narrative is shown, and I'm really grateful as a Bangladeshi, as a Bengali, that you have taken your time and your efforts to write a book about Bangladesh, which actually reflects what the real story was. And I would recommend everybody who is listening and who would be watching to spend some time getting the book and reading about it, because listening it from Awami League, who clearly has forgotten, that's my view, forgotten their roots and their history and why their forefather had actually established Bangladesh or helped establish Bangladesh. And my Awami League has actually joined hands with Jamaat, or even if it is not joining directly hands with Jamaat, Awami League has lost the secularism element of Bangladesh, and also all sorts of violation of democratic rights we can see in Bangladesh. The reason right now Bangladesh is not a successful country is because Awami League, who had the biggest of should I say support and aspiration from Bangladeshi people, have lost that, and kind of has gone down a route that is from Awami League's history will not be remembered as a good history for Bangladesh. That's all I'm trying to say. So I would recommend everybody who is watching to read this book if you can, and it's an excellent book. I read the foreword. It's available on the internet, and also link all the different videos of Salil available on internet. So Salil, can you give us a bit of indication of how long you may have left before you have to go?
Yeah, maybe another question or two, about 5-10 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. So obviously you have done your research during that time, and few of the One of the elements that we have been told about, that there was a Jashod who kind of declared a war on Bangladesh, and they did not like the formation of Bangladesh, and they came from a leftist background. How much do you know about that, and what can you tell us?
I mean, one of the key leaders of that was, of course, Colonel Tahir, and of course, he was executed, so he's not there. For those interested in Jashod, I would very strongly urge people to read the excellent work by the American journalist Lawrence Lifshultz, who has written a book called Bangladesh's Unfinished Revolution. He really goes into it, and I mean, you can't do better than that. I mean, it's very sympathetic to the radical narrative of Jashod. Jashod was keen for Bangladeshi independence, but it was also extremely circumspect of Indian dominance. And of course, as we all know, in the weird period of November 1976, when the jail killings took place, and there was a coup and then a counter coup, and the circumstances in which led to the rise of Ziaur Rahman, and still there are lots of unanswered questions about how those events unfolded. I've tried very hard to make sense of it. I'm not able. I mean, I can't say that I have the full narrative, and I don't think anybody has the full narrative of what happened then.
Okay.
And a good journalist and historian in Bangladesh, or interested in Bangladesh, who's not connected with politics on any side, should actually try to reconstruct what happened from the jail killings to the rise of Zia. I think there is a very fascinating story to be unearthed there about what really happened. That's one part of it. And Jashod was, of course, a force that came up at that time. And after Ziaur Rahman obviously felt that, it was time to make sure that there are no potential rivals. And Tahir was extremely popular. And recently meaning I think in the last 3 or 4 years, the court had a hearing to find out what really happened. And actually it came up with a good verdict about Tahir's conduct. And again, Larry Lifshultz, who I mentioned, had gone to testify at that time.
Okay, I would also recommend all our I think that book that you mentioned is already kind of I don't think it has been translated in Bengali.
I don't think so, but he writes articles which appear in Daily Star and Pratham Alo. So there are some of his articles, and he does a lot of very detailed investigative research.
That is brilliant. So what fascinates me is that when Sheikh Mujibur was murdered, he was murdered obviously along with his family, and the result after that, obviously, Khandagan Mushtaq came into power, and then followed by Zia, and then few years back later another military coup took place. And the nature of those people tells us they were very much pro-Islamist and pro-Pakistani. So do you think
actual pro-Islamic fervor? That is true. I mean, for example, I think the slogan Bangladesh Zindabad, as against Joy Bangla, started becoming popular. The leaders of Jamaat were brought back, and they could come back into Bangladesh. You also had cases where people who were implicated in coups or the assassination of Mujib, they were given government postings. Some were made diplomats abroad. And gradually you had an Islamic government coming in. I mean, one of the things that I think it was in Arshad's time that finally the decision was made to declare Bangladesh as an Islamic republic. And you mentioned Awami League's own record. They did pass the amendment a few years ago, but it said that it is an Islamic republic, which is a secular country. It would not say it is only a secular country. Now, that is a choice for Bangladeshis to make. I'm an outsider. I can't say it should opt for this or that government. But it is curious. And how can you be secular and yet having an official religion? But that's the choice Bangladesh made at that time. I'm told by experts who live in Bangladesh that they had to do it. There was no choice because given the nature of politics. Maybe that is the reason. I mean, I don't know. But
well, I can shed a bit of light on that, and I was told Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who himself was a fervorous Pakistani, Islamic Muslim, and he says, I'm a Bengali as well as a Muslim, and part of my psyche who has to be Muslim. And at that time, Saudi Arabia did not give recognition to Bangladesh, and also Bangladeshis were not being able to go to Hajj, and this is for him. Among everything, this was very important. So he had to go to the feet of Saudis and kind of still Saudis did not help him, and until and unless his murder, within few days of his murder, I think Saudis gave recognition to Bangladesh. After 5 years of independence, Saudis gave recognition to Bangladesh as a independent country, which shows that Mujib was not welcomed inside the OIC and Islamic country. No matter how much he wanted to show himself as Muslim, he was not. And only after his killing, Bangladesh was then accepted by the countries that are kind of allied with Saudi Arabia. Even I think China did not recognize Bangladesh.
I don't know when China recognized Bangladesh, but I do know that you're right that Saudi Arabia recognized it after Mujib's assassination. That is true. But the extent to which Mujib was trying to placate Saudi Arabia is something I don't know.
I have done some research. So what I'm trying to say is, although it is said that India, it is blamed on India that India had interest in Bangladesh, to take over. However, I can see that the results are actually explicitly kind of very abundantly shows that Pakistan, who has the interest inside Bangladesh to kind of continue the Islamization of Bangladesh and make it a Pakistan, which to a distorted view Bangladesh is now. I mean, we saw all the different extremism, all the different killing that took place. Bloggers are being murdered. I'm a blogger myself, and luckily I'm in England, so I may have survived. But my colleagues who are in Bangladesh, and also my colleague who came from America to Bangladesh, were murdered, along with all the other different religion and progressive peoples are being murdered inside Bangladesh under the rule of Awami League. So it clearly shows that Bangladesh, although it was survived, the Pakistanis from the war, but the core terraformation of Bangladesh, psyche has not survived, and over the years it has become more and more Islamic and more intolerant. So Salil, I really appreciate you making the time so early in the morning in London, and I know that you have to travel later today, and still making the time for Bangladesh. It shows your love for Bengali people, and I do hope that you feel well, you feel better, and I appreciate you making the time. And I'm sure we're gonna have a longer discussion once I have managed to read the book. Now that I have ordered the book and it's on its way, I can't wait any longer, and we're gonna have a longer discussion a few months down the line about this book. Probably we can do it in person because you live in London as well. So
sure.
I wish you all the best and wish you well health and success, and wish you keep writing about Bangladeshis, because it's not only the book that you have written. You've actually written so many other articles that are all over the internet, and I'll post links to this video, whoever is interested about Salil's work. And I really appreciate what you're doing for Bangladesh. Not many people are doing, especially people inside Bangladesh are so afraid of talking about it, and that's one of the reasons I have created this dialogue show on the YouTube, so that we can talk about stuff that are kind of not permitted inside Bangladesh, because we have like Section 57, which is we can't talk about things that could potentially harm and insult religious figure or political leaders, which kind of equates. So again, Salil, take care of yourself, and we'll see you in few months' time, hopefully.
Thank you so much. All the very best, and to you and all your viewers and listeners. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Salil, and take care. We will say goodbye now for now.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Bye.